I like how he said losing the
Right.
election, and you said losing the election like 3 different ways. That was
Yeah.
based, by the way.
Yeah. But my thing is, Wick, though, in the situation we're talking about, where the only thing that is kind of keeping them at bay is losing the election, but then there's going to be an incentive later on, considering they won 2 elections with Trump being a historically terrible president.
Yeah, I'm a little glazing myself. I was on here a little bit, but the reason why I wanted to kind of elaborate on this is purely because of this is what I said a little bit later on. Because I wanted to go into a little bit more depth into this point. So I'm allow myself to finish.
An incentive
but
later on,
there's
considering
something
they
important I wanted
won
to address.
2 elections with Trump being a historically terrible president. And of course, I'm sure you guys heard the murmurs, whether or not this is legally possible, of Steve Bannon talking about, we'll try to figure out if Trump can get a 3rd term. There is going to be that underlying
if
he gets a
incentive that
third term,
they're
my
going to try
calculation
another
changes real quick.
strategy later
Sure.
on
But
to
again,
reacquire power.
my mind changes as soon as certain lines are crossed. And if he is, if he runs for a 3rd term, a line has been crossed, and my calculations change.
Have you ever driven? You ever do interstate driving? You know how like when you're
So the reason why I asked that question, and I do think this is going to be a very interesting point to start focusing on. I think I've mentioned it before. I even had a clip talking about it before. What the Dems should be doing after they regain power in 2028. And I talked about how I should do a little thumbnail face. And in this video, I'm yapping, but I do. There's a reason why I'm showing this, other than showing my handsome face. You feel me? There's something in particular that I want to focus on, and that is the strategy of the Dems after they retain power, acquire power again. Now, I understand that the Dems should focus on helping the people. Right, that's what it seems like Mamdani is using as his strategy. He said as such that he's not really focused on battling against Trump, but focusing on helping the people. I think the purpose behind that sentiment is making it seem like the Dems do not want to be an anti-Trump party, but we want to help the people party. I get that. I understand that. But we live in a very particular time. Unless you're very sure that this is a circumstance that will not happen again, it's a unique situation that only Trump could have caused after his 2 terms, this will never be a circumstance again, then I would be there with you. I would be like, okay, sure, we're here, I'm here, I understand, I agree. However, as of right now, based off everything that I've seen from the Trump administration and from pundits, as well as political figures on the right, one thing is becoming very clear. They don't care about the systems that makes America America. It's very clear that they want to do whatever it takes to change America to something else. And Donald Trump was the perfect tool to acquire that power. I did a good amount of research on interesting individuals that seem like they have a very specific aim. When you go through J.D. Vance's history, it's very clear that he's willing to do whatever it takes to obtain power. And you look at a lot of the people associated with this kind of monolith of ideals that want to change America to this ultra-Christian, white nationalist, elitist nation, you have figures that include people like Curtis Yarvin. You have figures that include figures like Peter Thiel. You have billionaires that have their own agenda. Now you have a movement that is growing in sentiment from the right that is becoming more radical, more popular. The Nick Fuentes of the world, the Tucker Carlsons of the world. So there's a growing sentiment of radicalism that is being popularized on the right. There's a backing and underlying, dare I say, deep state on the right that wants to create a very particular nation. They came together to create Project 2025 to create this whole unitary executive theory behind the idea of a benevolent dictator that can retain power and keep power. They're confidently and boldly saying things like, we want to try to get Trump a third term. There is a deliberate strategy on the right to destroy America and recreate it in their own image. So that's why I personally can't see the vision of, oh, well, after we win again and they lose, because they will lose, we don't have to worry about them anymore. Wrong. Now, to be fair to Wick, a little bit later on, I think he did admit that he would lock up Trump.
Crazy. That's a deal breaker immediately. Opponents coming to the, but if you would actually run, I think that would be the line for me. Do you think you would ever made that statement 5 years ago?
5 years ago?
Because it's not. No. This is bullshit. Okay. And
It is.
Ever made that statement 5 years ago?
5 years ago?
That's all okay. Opponents coming to the Oval Office, well, he had hats saying Trump should be elected for a third term. And when his surrogates are arguing about running for a third term, that's all okay. But if you would actually run, I think that would be the line for me. Do you think you would ever made that statement 5 years ago?
5 years ago?
Because it's not. No. This is bullshit. Okay. And the reason why it's bullshit is because Bannon is a uniquely large piece of shit. And Mike Johnson, who is in charge of the House of Representatives, has said that he's not going to back a third term. This shit is dead on the water.
See, again, and I'm going to kind of go through the line of events properly to really articulate, because I think this will be a very concrete point of this and truly figuring out a very clear vision on how to deal with MAGA after the Dems win. I think that needs to be brought out. In addition, I do think obviously fixing the economy, affordability, all that stuff needs to be primary focus number one. But this also needs to be a part of the equation to ensure this never happens again. So here's my issue with this. The whole idea of like Mike Johnson saying that he wouldn't do it. So for me, my point of view, my perspective is I am thinking a little bit deeper in the sense that I do think there is deliberate intention on not trying to go too far for your own political career, so to speak, right? One thing is very clear, and I think his name is Kitzinger or something. He was a former Republican. He went on David Pakman's show. He went on there and he said that there are so many Republicans that are too scared to speak up against Trump. They're cowards. They're bitches. The only one that was willing to do it seems like is Thomas Massie. And the only reason why Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing it is because Trump basically outcasted her and didn't, help her get elected for Georgia senator, I believe. So for the most part, Republicans are afraid. And the reason why they're afraid is because MAGA is a cult. Whatever Trump says, if you get his endorsement, you get a huge leg up to win your primary for a Republican district. So capitulating to what Trump says is important. So you have to have a very specific image. Your image has to be, I am a Trump bottom. I suck him off, so vote for me. That is the current Republican platform. That's very clear. So there's a certain level of messaging you have to do there. With that said, you can't completely bury yourself and go off the edge of political suicide. Two of the very distinguishable things that they did not completely go after the edge. Also because, yes, MAGA is a cult, but generally these type of admissions could truly just destroy any politician's career, both on the Republican and Democratic side. Admitting you want a third term is one of them. Steve Bannon is not a political figure. He can say whatever the fuck he wants, and honestly, without no repercussions, because MAGA will still back him and still give him money. He proudly announced that, yeah, we did do Project 2025. Yeah, that was the platform the entire time. MAGA does not give a fuck. They were lying about it not being a platform the entire time. Now this was verifiable proof admitted by Bannon. So saying that you would help Trump get a third term as a congressman is political suicide. It's just this. It is political suicide. Unless Trump says he's going to do it for sure, which is why every time he alludes to it, he's joking. It is political suicide. And the other thing that is political suicide is the filibuster, because the Republicans know that they're going to lose. they're going to lose power. And if they allow the filibuster to be gone, that the Democrats are going to rail them over for the next like decade, basically. So there is a careful strategy when you're a Republican in Congress right now. The careful strategy is suck off Trump to ensure that the voters still like you. And then there's the idea is knowing the line so I can retain some level of political power. And that line is, I'm not going to admit that I'm going to help him get a third term. And that line is, I'm not going to get rid of the filibuster because the Republicans will lose so much power in the future. So I want to be clear that I just don't agree with counterpoints here and with anybody on his side that the people in the future are actively wanting to or be willing to kind of push back against some of these ideas, or at the very least not entertaining them in the background. I think there's a lot of very shady talk behind closed doors.
Johnson,
no,
wait,
just because you're yelling doesn't mean you're right on everything, Stephen. Really loud.
I want to see that. No, I'm curious. Do you mean Johnson committed to an opposing Trump position? He said, I will not support Trump for a third term. He actually said that. That'd be curious. Number one. Yes. Number two, Bannon is not a random. You understand that Bannon was chiefly involved with the Trump campaign in 2016 and was literally the author of the creator of Breitbart and was whispering in Trump's ear through up through 2020 as well, right? So it's not like Bannon's a random dude.
And Steve Bannon is a fucking schizo who has lost a lot of his political capital. As a matter of fact, you can go ahead and find a clip fairly recently where he said, we really need somebody like Trump in office in 2028 or else people like me are going to prison or going to jail. Steve Bannon has.
Here, I wanted to respond to here too, that just because he lost a lot of political capital from the people, because he's one of the individuals, as I mentioned before, that is willing to cross the line, does not mean he lost political influence. I do not believe that Steve Bannon does not have political influence still. I still firmly believe it, that he has some influence. He has connections. I still firmly believe he has direct connection with Trump. And honestly, the Epstein files and his conversations that he has pretty much confirms his involvement with that. So I am not in the camp that Bannon is not still very much has his ear to the situation taking place and has a level of influence to the direction of MAGA. I just don't believe that.
Lost his cachet compared
to
the
worst.
I found it.
The worst.
Just real quick, because I did find the actual quotation. He said there is no path for a third Trump term. He doesn't see the path for such a move, and it is barred under the Constitution. And he just said, well, there's the 22nd Amendment. It's been a great run, but I think the president knows, and he and I have talked about the constrictions of the Constitution. That's what he said.
So even in that statement, and again, this is if I was more consistent on here, then I would be speaking up every single time. This is not my show, so I was a guest, I was a bystander. But for this, I would have been very comfortable saying that is a statement made someone that does not want to piss off Trump. That's someone who wants to save his political career by not going full on, I'm cool with the third term, but also does not want to anger Trump by saying outright, no, this is not happening. So that it's very clear that Mike Johnson's a coward. We all saw the clip of Mike Johnson when he was going like, well, what am I going to do after Trump did the fucking military speech where he was going like, generals fall in line, basically, or you're fired. He's a coward. He's a pussy. He's a bitch. So, yeah.
Did not say he would not support him because he would support him. You do it lovingly.
So,
and Bannon did allude to the fact that
just hold on. Just let Randall finish his point, right? Did I answer your question, by the way, Randall? Randall?
I mean,
Radell,
you said you're the threat. Riddell, yeah, it's fine. You're good. It's not a big deal. So, I mean, you kind of did in terms of you said there is a line, and the line is him running a third term.
Well, there are other lines too, but that's the one that comes to mind, right?
But that's where I have to question how is the accumulation of so much of the things that MAGA has alluded to that they plan to do, as well as things that they've already done, not already flirting with the idea that there should be some type of consequence.
Look,
that's
we are both wanting consequences. We both just want different scale of consequences, right? Do you agree with Destiny that we should bar 25% of elected Republican officials from office if we win.
In my world, it'd be like
50%, 75%, whatever fucking crazy number he's dreaming out. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree to that because you need something substantive to make
exactly. Okay,
but,
so you can convince me just real quick. You could convince me for some sort of other consequence. I'm open to that. I came into this conversation.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a proposition from Destiny. I wonder if I'll be able to have a private one, or not private, but a 1v1 conversation with Destiny to kind of expand that thought process. Because, like I said, you need something substantive to make that assertion. You have to be able to tie very deliberate wrongdoings. And there are potential actions that I do think is extremely disqualifying, that if you can tie certain Republican people trying to run to, that I do think is something that's worth talking about, right? Something that was mentioned later on is January 6th. If you have some type of involvement with that, let's talk. 2 is the involvement with the cryptocurrency. If you have some type of tie into that, let's talk. Those are just 2 right off the top of my head. There are probably other things that we could kind of go into a little bit more deliberate action with, but those right off rip, if you are tied to those, then I do think that is disqualifying for you to run for the future. So that's why I would be interested to break down, see where the disagreements between me and Destiny are in regard to that in particular. To think that he will be able to bar 50% of MAGA, which is, if we're being good faith of the conversation, it's just generally 50% of the people on the right that's trying to run, because Republicans are just MAGA right now. Republicans don't exist. Then at that point, it's like, I doubt you'll be able to tie 50% of them to that. Now, that could be a troll. Even 25%, I think, is too much. I think at best you could do like 3%.
Again, in the context of the President of the United States, and let's be clear, calling for sitting Congress members to be hanged by the neck until they were dead. And I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm actually going to agree with Destiny today. And then didn't take long, and I was like, oh no, Destiny's fucking crazy again. And now I have to disagree.
I bet Destiny's going to be on board with the idea that, like, man, these guys need some consequences. What are the consequences? They're going to lose their elections. Wow, that's crazy.
Penultimate
crazy consequences.
Why things related to this?
That's a consequence that is not where no deliberate action is being taken. That is a result based off circumstances that is not being controlled by the Democrats necessarily. Of course, you have to bring them into the equation because they're the oppositional running, and they will say certain things to help them get elected. But all intents and purposes, we realize that this is such a bad election, and then the Democrats have to purposely try to fucking lose the midterms or the primary federal election of 2028. So yeah, those are a few things. It's already 10 o'clock. I have to start getting ready to bed. I'm going to finish this. I'm not going to react to that Raleigh Gaines video. I don't want to do content after 10. So
none of you, hold on. Not all of you twats are super loud, yapping, including Destiny. None of you have explained how you're actually going to impose consequences. None of you have actually
given the explanation. Use the 14th Amendment.
The closest person.
Use the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment says
he doesn't have a way to circumvent the pardon.
The 14th Amendment.
Yeah, I didn't even realize this was a question. If I was given the time to kind of substantiate it a little bit, the one thing that immediately that Dems can do when the moment they have power is, I kind of mentioned it here. I should just go right into what I say here, and then I'll just elaborate from there. So before it's taken off, I give my whole rant.
I will answer how. I will answer
crimes. Boom.
If your political leaders now you're.
Well, I want to be very clear. So, Dev, if you think that if JD Vance pardons Trump or if Trump pardons himself, no, I want to be very clear.
Now you are in violence. So morally degenerate that they're going to pardon themselves. You are outside of the bounds of the Constitution. Now you are in violence time.
So yeah, I don't agree with the idea that if you pardon yourself, that violence should probably be implemented to you. I would not go that far. I think that just sets a potential catalyst for a civil war, basically. But
crimes are you going to be
hold on, just real quick. No, I want to justify to do violence against the U.S. government.
Away from
if J.D. Vance pardons Trump or Trump pardons himself.
Yes.
Damn. Okay.
That's crazy.
I disagree.
He just fed posted
See,
like crazy.
my issue with this is that I feel like there's also not a recognition. If we're going to use the cachet that what you're referring to in terms of the people being super dissatisfied with Trump, we can also use that in other ways as well as the growing sentiment from the people on the Democratic side. And now the Republicans can't go back in the past and use this as ammunition. When it comes down to the pardon circumstance, now there is actual justifiable reason why we probably should deal with it, especially if we're doing self-pardoning. The people are starting recognizing, oh yeah, sure, we have issues with the preemptive pardons from Biden. We have big issues with Donald Trump pardoning himself, pardoning the Jan Sixers, and pardoning all these corrupt politicians and these weird billionaires, the guy with the Binance. So now this is becoming more of a thing that is becoming recognized, and now there's heat on both directions. So in a circumstance like this, not only with the pardon system, but even something that I don't really care what you feel about it, but with the filibuster, another example where there's a lot of people on the left that was like, we want to get rid of the filibuster. Trump obviously wants to get rid of the filibuster because he wants to do whatever he wants as an executive authoritarian. But this is just another thing that's like, oh, we saw how it was used. It was used in a way that was super corrupt by the Trump administration. So now certain things that have been deliberated regarding the political landscape can now truly be challenged, not only from the sides that have dissatisfaction with it, but with the people now seeing how they can be used in a corrupt fascist way. So it's not just them losing elections, but now you can raise these issues in a way to not only use it against the authoritarian regime that is MAGA, but they can't even go back on it because they use these type of arguments to attack the Dems at the same time. So you have now a full picture of framing it very clearly on why we should attack these specific things.
Okay, the solution to I'm sorry if I'm not addressing what you just said, but the solution to pardon abuse would be legislation amending the Constitution to limit the.
So, unfortunately, we could not dive into this amazing point that I just made. I think to kind of be very clear, since I'm not ranting, it's the Dems have the opportunity, if they are put into power again, they have the opportunity to utilize the ammunition of actions made by MAGA to weaken them severely and fix problems in the system, right? So that's why the pardon system, they have the opportunity to deliberate on how corrupt it was used. They have the opportunity to investigate and make a very clear distinction that this was used improperly in a means to pardon criminals. Now we can attach consequence to that. For the filibuster, we can definitely deliberate. We probably won't be able to tie that into any very specific crime, but you could definitely tie that into the idea of anytime the Republicans or someone on the right were trying to stop a certain Democratic proposal, like the public option for healthcare or something regarding student loans. So that's just something of the system, that something that the Republicans benefit from. Now this is a consequence because they know the Democrats are going to have the power. We can get rid of the filibuster, and now they're going to lose a lot of power in the next decade because Democrats are going to have all the influence. So politically, they're going to lose a lot of power in those circumstances. Legally, they're going to lose a lot of power in those circumstances, in addition to losing elections. And now, if we're going specific in terms of very clear wrongdoing, I said it earlier, I'm going to bring it back in. You can look at the Trump meme coin. You can look up his actions regarding Jan 6. You can do a full investigation in his relationship with the Epstein files. And you can look into Epstein's suicide if you really want to go there. Hey, man, we're here. Let's do it. I don't care if Bill Clinton gets locked up too. Lock his ass up too if he's a PDF. You can look up the deals being made between Trump and foreign individuals. So there are so many avenues based off Trump's intention of enriching himself and his family and benefiting himself, that you can tie into people who were okay with this happening and then people who are benefiting from this happening. Not only that, you can also look into individuals, and although you may not be able to expose them legally, you can outright expose their character to the people, making it very clear that there was an intentionality of making Trump a dictator. You could do an full investigation on how they used Project 2025, how they muddied up the water and lied about how their political platform to make people believe things that they're not actually true. There is a necessary thing that needs to be done from the Dems to, hey, you use these as a means in terms of pardoning, filibuster, in terms of how you did with the Supreme Court. You're going to suffer from all three of these because of how badly you use them. Check, check, check. We're going to expose how terrible you are after doing a thorough investigation on the type of things that you were planning. Check, check, check. And then Donald Trump and his friends that have been doing corrupt meme coin shit or corrupt trying to overthrow the government shit, we're getting you out of here. Check, 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 check. These are all things that the Dems can pay attention to. Now, do they need to run this as their political platform to get themselves elected? No, but it's necessary to weaken MAGA. I don't want to weaken Republicans. I want to weaken MAGA. It's necessary to weaken MAGA, to expose them so they are completely eliminated from the political picture altogether. Right? Like, for example, the whole idea of the KKK is like people think that they don't exist anymore. Like Candace Owens made some stupid fucking remark about how the KKK have no influence anymore. And that was purposeful because we showcase all of their terrible action. That's what needs to happen to MAGA. We need them to not exist anymore. Their whole philosophy and ideology is dangerous. So, obviously, that's not everything I can get off on a panel, but that's how I wanted to break down. There is a bigger conversation that I do want to have in terms of the best way to deal. Maybe I'll do an open panel about this. The best way to deal with the MAGA Republicans after Dems regain power.